Valerie Solanas was this panhandler, sex worker, writer, playwright, and sort of force of nature, who is most known for self-publishing the Scum Manifesto in 1967, which she handed out in the Village in New York City, and a year later for shooting the pop artist Andy Warhol at his studio on Union Square. And when she turned herself into the police, she told them she was a writer. So that's how she wanted to be remembered, is as a writer. I first read the Scum Manifesto, I think, when I was in college. It was part of some research I was doing on kind of the art scene in the 60s and 70s in New York City. And it's this incredible text that no one has any idea what to do with. So it calls for, among other things, the total automation of work, the abolition of private property, the sort of more or less genocide of men. There are a couple of exceptions and outs, but more or less killing most men. The elimination of the male sex, she puts it. And no one had any idea what to do with this. Her own publisher thought that it was a joke. And when she shot Warhol, he said, how could, he felt like the evidence had been there that she was going to do something violent, but he had never been able to bring himself to believe that she was serious. This book actually began as a conversation with this play that she wrote that has never actually been published. You can find it online in various forms, but this play called Up Your Ass that she was writing in the late 60s while she was living sort of in and around the Village. It's this very strange play that is sort of about herself and involves sex work and some murder and some literal eating of shit and sex on stage and sort of broad caricature, broad like satiric characters. And I had spent so much time with Scum that I wanted to get into this play. And Females is sort of the result of that encounter. There are a couple reasons that Valerie's work has resonated with me so much. One is that she goes to the end. So that she's on the one hand sort of extremely logical, like more logical than a person should be. That she's following the implications of feminist or also just like anti-man thinking all the way to the end, right? So it's totally uncompromising, the programs that she sets forth. On the other hand, there's this recklessness to the writing. So she's sort of also like supremely irrational in this way. You can tell that she's projecting. You can tell that her desire is sort of just like overflowing in the text. And so there's a kind of shamelessness about that, about the margins of the text where it becomes possible to see the person behind it. And so she's both of these things at once. She is sort of lawful and chaotic at the same time. She's, kind of like a fascist and an anarchist in one. Provocation is like a word that gets thrown around a lot to refer to like a lot of different activities. I make lots of outlandish claims in the book. I say everyone is female. I say everyone hates it. I say I'm very skeptical about the existence of men, I make these broad, sort of indefensible, sweeping generalizations about like everyone in history. There's these crazy, crazy claims. And I think it's right to say that the point of that is to provoke a response in the reader. I don't think we believe things because they are true. I think we believe them because they make us feel a particular way. And what a shocking or provocative statement can do, if done correctly, is bring to consciousness the fact of emotion in argument or in the production of truth. So you give the reader an opportunity to realize, like, this bothers me not because I think it's wrong on an intellectual level, but because I have investments in some things being true and other things not being true. And those investments, right, that is the tendrils of desire. It's like I think it's a good provocation is about revealing to the reader both your own as a writer and the reader's investments, and trying to make those the real site of transformation or education or epiphany. So there's other reasons you might provoke people. But I think it can have a kind of pedagogical function. It is. I think provocation can be an education of the senses if you let it. The trick of desire is not to get crushed by it, right? I mean, we call a crush for a reason, but in order to survive desire, you have to build up mechanisms to mediate it, put it at a distance, repress it, sublimate it, and this is what I mean when I say that everyone is female and everyone hates it. The hating is not necessarily always in the form of railing against it and screaming and tearing our hair, but as a kind of structural hatred, which is, I know that I can't give myself over to this completely, even though it is the thing that I am. If I give myself over to it, I will be destroyed, and so I have to find ways to manage it and keep it in check. And arguably this is, I mean, if you go along with me in the book, then that hatred is the root of just like civilization. That's actually just what culture is the attempt to mediate, put a Band-Aid on desire.